UFC London fight night is coming up in a few days, and it's a really good card. I feel like it has a lot of depth. The prelims are actually pretty good. The main card is pretty good, and it should be a pretty good fight night. And the main event, Leon Edwards is having his comeback fight against Sean Brady. Leon, I don't think he had lost for like 9 years. Just lost to Belal Muhammad, lost the belt, and he's taking on Sean Brady on relatively short notice. I believe Sean Brady is stepping up on a few weeks' notice because Shavkat couldn't fight Belal, and then JDM had to step in. It was originally Leon versus JDM, which honestly probably would have been a more exciting fight, but regardless, this may even be a harder matchup for Leon. I still am going to pick Leon as an underdog, and here's why. So I think they say that Leon, he's going to struggle with Brady because he doesn't do well with grapplers that can mix it up. Sean Brady is pretty good on the feet. He has good technique. He's good everywhere. However, Leon, he does do well against grapplers. Yeah, he didn't do great against Belal. He still beat Usman twice. He still beat Colby. And I think Usman is a guy who's much more dangerous on the feet. Not as dangerous on the ground as Sean Brady. He doesn't have as many submissions, obviously, but he's still dangerous on the feet, and he did amazing against Usman in that third fight. He looked really good. Even in the second fight, he was good. I mean, I think his grappling is very underrated. He took Usman's back in the first round of the second fight. He does do well against grapplers. Colby Covington, another guy that he defeated relatively easy. And I get Colby was washed, Colby isn't very good anymore, so it kind of was like a free win, even though we didn't know that at the time. He didn't really throw a punch, but still, he still did well against him. And he was able to show off his jiu-jitsu against Colby Covington. He had him in a few submissions that weren't locked up, but, he was threatening them, whatever. And I think that even though Sean Brady does have good submissions, I don't think that he'll be able to submit Leon Edwards, because I think Edwards has good jiu-jitsu. No one really talks about it, but he's pretty good on the ground. And again, the main reason people are picking Sean Brady, I feel like, is because of the Belal fight. It's 100% because of his last performance. It was underwhelming. He did not perform well. And yes, it still is a bad sign going against Sean Brady, but he did not do as bad as people say against Belal Muhammad. He was able to take his back multiple times in that fight. I've talked about this fight, I feel like, a million times on my channel. He landed some really good shots on the feet, especially in the first round. Sean Brady, he doesn't have the durability or cardio of Belal Muhammad. He's kind of like a worse version of Belal. We saw that in their fight where he got TKO'd against Belal Muhammad. He got rocked against Gilbert Burns in the early second. I'm not going to say that he's chinny, because Leon is also chinny, but he doesn't have as good of a chin as Belal Muhammad, in my opinion. He has a better submission game, but Leon has good jiu-jitsu. I don't think he submits him, and I don't think his control is as good as Belal Muhammad's. It could be because he takes a little bit more risk going for submissions, where Belal kind of just tries to control you for the round. And I do think that that's going to play a factor in this fight. We saw Brady, he controlled Burns in the 5th round. He wasn't able to really take him down or control him that much in the other 4 rounds. And Burns, he got controlled because he was gassed. Even though he didn't throw a single punch, that performance Burns had against Brady, I think may have been just as bad as Colby's performance against Leon. It was one of those fights where you realize, like, oh yeah, this person is completely washed. And Brady, a lot of that fight, he was fighting Burns on the back foot, playing the kicking game for most of the fight. That's going to favor Leon Edwards. And how he would get Burns in the clinch is he just would blitz him and throw like a long combination. And Burns would just keep a high guard and just back up, not try to counter him, just try not to get hit. And then Burns would back up until his back hit the fence. And then Brady would clinch him, and he wasn't able to take him down for most of the fight, but he would throw more output, so he would win the round. That's pretty much how most of that fight went. Belal was able to kind of do this to Leon, but I think Leon won't make the same mistake twice, and Belal has better boxing than Sean Brady. And even with all these advantages that Belal has over Sean Brady, and how it's a harder matchup for Leon than Sean Brady, Leon still was able to win 2 of the 5 rounds, and if he would have stuffed that takedown at the end of the first and then landed maybe 2 to 3 more strikes, he would have won the first round and he would have won the fight. People don't talk about it because a lot of the rounds were kind of dominant. That was a pretty competitive fight and he was very close to winning it. Sean Brady, I do think he's improved since the Bilal fight. He looked good in 5 rounds against Burns, but it wasn't a high-paced fight. I know Leon doesn't fight at a high pace, but Burns didn't throw a single punch. I mean, Leon is at least going to throw something, and he's going to let his hands go. He's going to punish Sean Brady. And there's also the fact that Brady took this fight on kind of short notice, which isn't ideal. We don't know how his gas tank is going to be. Leon has known he's fighting on this date for months now. He's been preparing for this. I think Leon doesn't have the best cardio, but I think that his cardio may even be better than Sean Brady's given the status and just how they approach the fight. Sean Brady is going to be shooting takedowns, and I don't think that either of these guys are finishers, so I think we're going to see a close decision, 48-47 either way. I think there's going to be a round where Sean Brady holds him down, but I think Leon will be able to take him down. Also, I'm not going to say he's going to take him down, but I wouldn't be shocked if Leon was able to take down Sean Brady. I don't think he's going to control him, but it is possible. And Sean Brady, he wasn't able to control Burns until the 5th, and I don't know if he has the cardio on short notice to win the later rounds by grappling. I don't know how his cardio is going to be. Burns, his output was horrible, and he still gassed out, which still is insane to me. Brady, he did shoot a good takedown. I think it was a double leg in like the 3rd round or something. I don't really remember. But he was able to get Burns down, which was pretty impressive. And I think a similar takedown and a similar threat could be good for Sean Brady, where he takes him down kind of in the center. At least he shoots in the center and then kind of pushes him against the fence and takes him down that way. I think that's going to be more effective for him than trying to take him down like in the clinch against the fence. But Leon is good at getting back up, so I don't think Sean Brady is going to have a ton of success that way. I think he'll have success, and I think Leon is going to be a little bit more high output. Burns was doing good in the clinch. He landed a few really big shots in the clinch. I think it may have been in the 3rd round. And Leon is even better in the clinch than Gilbert Burns. I think he's going to have good knees to the body, kind of to tire out Sean Brady. Is a 50-50 fight, but I am going to go with the underdog, Leon Edwards. I also think he's going to be a little bit more motivated for this fight, given his last performance, but you never know with Leon. That's why it's tough picking him. But moving on to the co-main event, Jan Blachowicz, Carlos Ulberg. I think if Jan was a few years younger, he would 100% win this fight. This is the perfect style for him to beat. He made a career off of beating guys like this. But with him coming off of a long layoff, off of a loss, surgeries, and he's 42, he probably is washed or at least not as good. He's very defensively responsible. He has a good chin. He has great leg kicks. He's great at checking leg kicks. And we saw guys like Ozdemir. He was landing a ton of leg kicks against Ulberg. Ulberg does not check leg kicks. And he was landing some of his own against Ozdemir, but again, Jan is better at checking them than Ozdemir. And the main issue with Ozdemir in that fight is he couldn't get out of the way of the jab. He also kind of tired out. And it was a very close fight. I don't remember it 100%, but I believe Volkan won the 1st round and the 2nd round was close, and then Ulberg won the 3rd round. It wasn't a great performance by Carlos Ulberg, but it still was an okay one. And Ozdemir, he even mixed in the grappling. He wasn't successful with it, but I think Jan Blachowicz would have more success mixing in the grappling than Ozdemir. And I think if he's 70 to 80% of what he was when he fought Alex Pereira, I think he should win this fight. His power, it's a little bit overrated, so I think it's going to be a competitive decision again either way, 29-28. And the ring rust, it is scary because if it takes him a round to get started, then he needs to win the 2nd and the 3rd, and his cardio isn't the best, and especially it's a long layoff. It's not an ideal situation, but I am going to go with the underdog again, Jan Blachowicz, in this fight. I think he wins 29-28. The rest of the card, I'm not too sure about. The featured fight, I actually think Kevin Holland, I think he's the underdog. I probably will pick him, but I said after he beat Dalitzy, or after he lost to Dalitzy, I said I'm never picking him again. I always pick him and he always loses. And then I picked him against DeRitter and he got dominated, submitted in the 1st round, and I said I'm never picking him again. I think he should beat Gunnar Nelson because It's at 170. Gunner's old. Kevin should win, but I have to go with Gunner because I said I'm never picking Kevin Holland again. Then you have the Molly McCann fight. I honestly don't know much about the girl she's fighting. I think that she's from the Dana White Contender Series. They usually don't pan out, but I guess I'll go with her because Molly McCann isn't good, but it's WMMA. You never know. Then we have Jordan Vucinic. I think is going to submit Chris Duncan. I think this is a pretty easy fight to call. I believe his first fight, his debut, I think was against Garam, and he looked good. I think he beat him in the first round, kind of dominated him, and then his gas tank didn't hold up, and I think he took it on short notice. A pretty easy pick or a fight to call in my opinion. Then you have Morgan Charrier versus Nathaniel Wood, two really good prospects at 145. I'm going to go with Morgan Charrier. I think he's more powerful. I think he's more dangerous. I think Nathaniel Wood is kind of chinny. He gets hurt in some of his fights. I think Charrier has good takedown defense. He's one of my favorite fighters at 145. I think he should win this. Then we have the prelims. Again, this is a really good card. These are pretty good early prelims. We have Chris Padadilla, I think is how you say it, and he's going up against Jai Herbert. I think he goes by Taco or something, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he was the underdog in his last two fights, and I think he won both of those by finish. He's a pretty good underdog, and I do think he'll beat Jai Herbert because if you look at Jai Herbert, he's a guy that's pretty chinny. He's good, but he doesn't have finishing ability. And a lot of the guys that he's beat or fought, they're not like finishers like Ludovic Klein. He's really good, but he doesn't get a ton of finishes. And a few other guys that just aren't great finishers and don't have a ton of power that he's beating. Ziam is another guy that he lost to. I get he just got a knockout, but still not super powerful. So I'm going to go with the underdog. And then we have, I think it's like Loner Kavanagh versus Dos Santos. I'm going to go with Loner. I think, this should be a good fight because both of them have kind of a little bit of power. Flyweights, it should be fun. Then I'm going to go with Tybura over McParkin. Tybura, I think, is super underrated at heavyweight. Maybe McParkin could win. He stuffs the takedowns. I could see that. He trains with Tom Aspinall. I'm going to go with Tybura, though. I usually always pick him. Then Christian Leroy Duncan, I think he's going to knock out. I believe it's some Russian UFC debut, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have another WMMA fight. I believe both of these girls won their last fight by split decision. And I know both of those fights were like controversial, but I actually thought that they both should have won their fight. I know a lot of people said robbery. I think she's Indian. I'm going to go with her just because I remember watching the other girl and I was like, wow, she's awful. Again, WMMA, you never know. Then I'm going to go with Nathan. I don't know. I may switch to Nathan Fletcher. I'm not too sure. Because I know, I forgot how to pronounce his name too, like Loran or whatever. He looked awful in his last fight against Jake Hadley. He didn't really throw anything, looked terrible. But Nathan Fletcher isn't the best. Again, it's like a pick 'em because neither of these guys are super good. And then the first fight, Garam, I think is going to win. Pretty easy pick. But those are my picks. I may switch a few of them. I may switch the featured fight, Kevin Holland and Gunnar Nelson. But regardless, those are my picks. I am pretty much locked in for the main and co-main though. But yeah, let me know who you guys are picking.